And the most common form of that would be to say to the spirits, leave me now. If you've given the spirits some kind of command or instruction, you say, go forth and do my will, and please leave now. That means leave the temple, leave the ritual space, and leave me alone in good peace. Now, there is always this danger that you're going to invoke or summon a spirit or a demon, and at the end of the ritual, the demon will hang around. And this is when you get spirit possession, this is when things get very, very nasty. And so what the Chaldean, Babylonian magicians used to do is they used to pick up the cord that was used to make the protective magic circle on the ground, and for extra protection for the days after the ritual had ended, they used to wrap the cord around their waists. And this is why very commonly you see illustrations of medieval monks with the long gown. That was very typical of what magicians used to wear, with a cord wrapped around their waists. Iraq, for many centuries, was the center of magical tradition in the Persian Gulf. For hundreds of years, thousands of Jewish shamans, today we call them students of the Kabbalah, studied in Fallujah, Basra, and Baghdad. In the 1950s, after the formation of the State of Israel, more than 120,000 Jews emigrated from Iraq. Iraq is not only the crucible of creation, but Iraq was also the birthplace of Kabbalistic, Chaldean, and Babylonian magic. The secret teachings of the mystery schools of Baghdad eventually spread to Egypt, where centuries later the royal pharaohs would use dark mirrors to contact spirits. Iraq is now one of the Persian Gulf states, but in ancient times Iraq was known as the Kingdom of Babylon. The name Babylon means the gate of the gods. In ancient Baghdad, there once stood giant statues of bulls with human heads. This was the famous Babylon Gate, which today, like so many treasures from this ancient land, is now on display thousands of miles away in the British Museum. The so-called Babylon Gate of the Gods was not just a physical gateway. The statues represented a psychic gateway, a portal where telepathic messages could be communicated to the ancient gods of the stars. The Baghdad Museum has a collection of stone tablets and statues illustrating what these star gods looked like. They were called the Anunnaki. Just recently, thousands of ancient artifacts were looted from the Baghdad Museum, and some of these artifacts, many of them portraying the Anunnaki star gods, have been handed into the authorities, having been dumped on roadsides in the USA. which today is under foreign military rule, was once the global capital of magical ritual. Thus, we see in the many museums recently looted in Iraq ancient manuscripts and stone tablets which explain a technique for drawing on the ground a magic circle. This circle was considered by the magicians of ancient Iraq to be a physical representation of the aura of the human spirit. Around the circle, the Babylonian mystics would write the names of spirits which guard the 4 cardinal points of the universe. The mystic would then inscribe in the air a pentagram and stab this imaginary pentagram with a magical sword, banishing any unwanted spirits from the temple. Bait, in the form of little gifts or offerings, would be laid out on a table inside the circle, and the name of the spirit which the mystic wanted to converse with would be chanted. A piece of polished metal or glass was used to see or scry the faces of spirits. This became known as the dark mirror, and it became widely used by magicians working for the Egyptian royals, by the Oracle of Tibet, and also used to divine the most appropriate date for the coronation of Elizabeth I by her royal astrologer, Dr. John Dee. John Dee's dark mirror was recently on display at the Science Museum in London. Shamanism, paganism, and Druidism from Europe, the Mediterranean and the Persian Gulf states coalesced into a form of occult science. The formulation of magical spells became popular in the Greek islands, where mystery schools dedicated to hallucinogenic plants flourished for thousands of years before the birth of Christ. Archaeologists have uncovered magical papyri written in Greek which call forth spirits to aid healing, obtaining visions of the spirit world, exorcism, the attainment of beauty and love, and the destruction of enemies. These Greek magical spells influenced magical tradition across the Holy Lands and later influenced magical texts published in medieval Europe. The names of the spirits invoked in these magical ceremonies had to be called out accurately with the correct pronunciation in order to summon the correct spirit. In other words, the magician had to be good at grammar,